Hi everyone, Leanne here. It is an absolutely beautiful evening and I thought it would be a great time to just take the camera and go for a little walk through the garden. Give you a bit of a tour and an update, let you know where we're at. So come on, let's go down in. So it's now the very beginning of June. We've been here for about a week and been busy, to say the least. I posted a video a couple days ago showing you the way that we got all our vegetables, the first phase of our vegetables, from the city to the country and got them planted. But we've done a lot to change up the structure of the rest of the garden beds, built our hugels, we'll talk about that, and lots of weeding, lots of moving dirt. So I thought this would be a good time to go through and talk more about the specific plants, because I've generally been just saying, oh, there's a cucumber, there's a tomato. But I thought maybe now would be a good time to walk through and tell you the actual varieties that we've planted and why. So we'll start at the very, very bottom corner of our garden here. This lowest bed tends to be one of our driest beds as well. But we have a couple rows of bush beans in. Some of them that we planted back in April and they've come up. And then there was 2 rows that never did germinate and come up. Or if they did, something got in there and ate them. So we have just recently seeded them. Fingers crossed. So then the next garden up from there, the next bed up there, is garlics. Those got planted in the fall. And all from little bulbs from the previous year. And that was a goal of mine, was to get to a point where I can just be propagating my own garlics year after year. So there's 7 rows in total there. And then we've got a little tiny row of strawberries. Lots of blossoms. Some of them are wild, some of them are domestic. But we have some rhubarb. They've already cut stalks off of it back in April and again the other day. Doing really well. And then this bed here is onions that were, they're Walla Wallas. They were started from seed back in the city, and when we brought them up in about a month ago, they were just tiny little hairs. Super, super fragile looking little things. And they've grown like crazy and are doing really well. So that's exciting. And we've got the raspberries. They're, same as always, quite out of control. And from the raspberries we go down to a bed full of more onions. These are white onions. There's 2 rows of white onions. And at the end, there's 2 rows of Spanish onions. And the 3rd row in the front here, that front row, is little onions left over from my harvest last year. They were the tiniest of the bunch. They were a yellow variety, which is a good storage onion. And I just thought, what the heck, let's throw them in, see what happens. And they seem to be doing pretty well. And then the bottom row here, we have 2 varieties of potatoes. There's a nasturtium. We have a Pontiac and a Cannabec. So a yellow skinned potato and a red potato. Yellow fleshed and a red skinned. The bottom is some grapes. We've had them for years and struggled to get them to grow very well. Recently moved them down here and they seem much happier. So there's a huge mix of table grapes and wine grapes, but they haven't really produced. So we're hopeful. Maybe this will be the year. In the bottom corner there we have some Jerusalem artichokes, or sunchokes they're sometimes called. They're an awesome perennial in the sunflower family. They grow really tall and put out a really funky tuber It's kind of like a potato, kind of like a turnip, kind of its own thing altogether. So anyway, if you plant them once, you will have them forever. So that's a good thing. So then back up to the top section of the garden, there's more of those Jerusalem artichokes. And there's the row of cucumbers that I had mentioned earlier. So we mostly grow cucumbers so that we can do pickles. And so this was a mix of Wisconsin and a variety called homemade pickle. So after that, we've got some tomatoes, Manitobas, and Old Germans.
A heirloom orange and red variety.
So we've got quite a mix of tomatoes, but at this stage of the game, most of the ones that we've planted are Manitobas. They're sort of a medium-sized fleshy tomato. So there's more cucumbers, more Wisconsin, more homemade pickle, and behind it getting watered.
Carrots, lettuce, beets, mix of stuff. Greens for the summer.
Hopefully greens for the summer, yeah.
And carrots for the fall.
And then over here we have one of the hops plants. Crazy, crazy monster growing vines. It's not uncommon to look up and notice at the beginning of the day a little tendril taking off, and at the end of the day to find that it's grown at least 6 inches. They're just amazing. We've got some bunching onions growing in there, but mostly those are just the leftovers of the tulips and the daffodils, mostly daffodils. So we've got some more more strawberries and some coreopsis that the slugs have ravaged. So we're hoping that we can get those in better shape, protected from the slugs. These are more of those little Walla Walla onions that were started from seed, so they're just doing great. So then up here is the tomatoes again, more tomatoes. There's Oregon Spring and Manitoba. So big beefsteaky like tomatoes, and then kind of a medium-sized fleshy tomato. Doing pretty darn good. This is the area that in the last video I showed covered in plastic and said we were going to be building hugelkulturs. So the point of digging up a trench and throwing down a bunch of rotted birch and getting it super wet and adding a lot of green material and even straw and newspaper can go in, all sorts of different things. It's kind of like a lasagna layer gardening, but within a trench type of structure. And then we've covered it up with dirt and then big piles of topsoil. And the whole reason for doing this is that it provides a lot of moisture to the deep roots of the plants in areas where water can be kind of limited. So for us, we're in a kind of a high mountain desert area. We only get about 11 inches of rain a year. We don't have a well, and so water can be one of our biggest challenges. So hugelkulturing seems to be a great way of growing plants in that kind of environment. So that's why we went to all the effort to dig the holes and put in all of the material. It is a lot of work, but
it's worth it. Gives you a good soil, and just hugels are fancy layered lasagna gardens. Common in all kinds of gardening and good for us in a dry climate.
so there we go. I'm excited to see how they do this year. So these are all zucchinis, raven zucchini and butternut and buttercup and a moon pumpkin. It's a white pumpkin and yellow zucchini and raven zucchini and another moon. And in amongst all of these are planted corn and pole beans. And this is referred to as
Three sisters.
Three Sisters. They all seem to...
We're not quite in the order that we're supposed to be, but we're not up here all the time.
So yeah, this is a mac pumpkin and scallopinis, otherwise known as patty pans. More scallopinis and more scallopinis. Golden zucchini, scallopini, and gray zucchinis. And the same in here, we've then planted in the corn and the beans. And they will hopefully all grow up and support each other. So the corn grows nice and tall, gives us something for the beans to climb on, and the zucchini creeps along the ground and provides some shade and retains some moisture on the roots of the beans and the corn. And so that's the theory behind that. The last two big beds up here have just been turned and topsoil put down and straw and more topsoil, and so they're prepared. We're going to throw some black plastic on to keep weeds under control while we're gone and warm the soil up. And this is where the peppers are going to go and where the rest of the tomatoes that'll make it next trip are going to get planted. So there's lots of space for them. And then the last little bed at the top of the garden here is more of the tomatoes and more. They are Manitobas. That's a variety that's worked really well for us. There's another rhubarb right there. And there's a mason bee house. Mason bees are great pollinators. And then there's chives. Chives are Brent's favorite. They are perennial, they are hardy, they are drought tolerant, they flower, they're tasty, they're awesome. There's a little bed up at the very top just outside of the electric fence that's got sage and thyme and oregano, lavender. That all is pretty weedy, but doing really well. So that's it. That's the garden tour and the garden update for the beginning of June. We'll be back in about another 3 weeks with a truckload full of plants, and then we'll be in full swing. Full summer production, we hope. So thanks for watching the video. Check out my previous video if you want to see how the plants got up here. And if you like this type of video, give it a thumbs up, maybe subscribe, and if you got any questions, put them in the question box for me. I would love to see if I can answer. Anyway, have a nice evening. Thanks for watching. Bye.